can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you gon' be with me for the last ride.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
No, I say we just go. I don't know where the other two are, but what's going on, everybody? I'm the one, the only, the WOOKIE. Joined here once again by the only misfit that matters. The kid that knows more than you, Mr. Cole Rubby.
Hello.
So,
tell people in the Discord that because they don't seem to believe anything I say.
well,
But they know everything, just so you know.
highly doubt that, but... Oh, what a week it's been, huh?
What a week, what a week.
We've been incredibly inconsistent with the podcast. Due to
Also
all you
true.
guys. You guys have been doing all your judging of other games.
Yes.
Chuck Norris, I finally found it. Chuck Norris passed away today. That's crazy.
Yep.
I don't know what we're gonna do, and comes with solemn hearts. Altered is no more.
I am sadder about
Chuck Norris?
the guy that played.
Oh.
No, I don't care about Chuck Norris. I don't really care for racists. I'm more sad
Why
about...
was Chuck Norris a racist?
I don't know. Why is anyone a racist?
I don't know. I've never heard Chuck Norris say anything bad about anybody. Maybe I didn't do my research. I don't know.
The guy that played Xander in Buffy also passed away today. And Altered passed away. When was this
2 days ago.
released? On the 18th. So yeah, it's just
2 days ago.
Very, very sad week. In our show notes, I do have the update talking about the end. Did you already read it, or do you want to take a look over it? What are you feeling?
Well, I think being the last episode and the last time I'm going to get to ever read anything Altered, maybe we can go over it together. What is it? Does that sound good with anybody? It's the last time you'll be able to hear my sultry voice at least talk about Altered. So, as promised, we are getting back to you to provide you an update on the mobilization of our professional partners. The amount collected from them stands at $680,000, combined with the $420,000 currently pledged on GameFound. We have reached a total of approximately $1.1 million at this hour. This was at 12:29 p.m. I think it's Central Standard Time on here. We are far, far too far from the vital goal of 2 million. We had set to guarantee the future of the game. It would be dishonest to tell you that we can still turn the tide by Friday evening. We must face realities. The numbers simply aren't there. It is with a heavy heart that we have decided to cancel Roots of Corruption campaign. As we committed to doing, all backers, both players and retailers, will be reimbursed in full. This is the cornerstone of our responsibility towards you, and it is the most obvious decision to make. This campaign does not only mark the end of a crowdfunding project, unfortunately, it also marks the end of Altered. So,
the end of the Altered adventure is what it specifically says, which is good to note because a lot of people hung on to that very last part of the sentence and didn't read further, it seems, or they just have that, half a sentence stuck in their brain. So this episode hopefully will clear some things up on how it's going to look going forward. Maybe I'll share some insight as the quote unquote insider that people call me. But the next part of the article is a message from Regis
Bonasse.
Yeah, which if you're really into board games,
definitely butchered that name, so I apologize.
Yeah, you know who Regis is. He has a pretty storied career in board games, and then of course is Equinox's founder and was one of the, it's probably fair to say, original creators of Altered. I will admit I don't know what involvement he had specifically, like hands-on with it during the sets, other than, being the CEO. He did hop into the GameFound comments a lot to help answer questions, and he was at the office a lot. I just don't personally know what he worked on day to day with Altered itself. So
Jiminy Crickets. I've been it's funny because not too long ago, Altered was the largest Kickstarted game ever, or largest Kickstarted TCG ever on Kickstarter. Obviously, that has now Cyberpunk has happened. And I've been looking a lot into Cyberpunk, as a lot of people, I don't know if obviously a lot of people are. Boy, oh boy. We can talk a little bit about that later on. They're at last night they're at 10.5. Right now they're at 11.3, which is absolutely crazy. But let's get back to Altered for a little bit. On a personal note, I have experienced the end of projects before, or cycles that come to close, but today feels different. Tonight we feel a profound sadness as we reflect on on what Altered has become for all of us. Tonight, we are thinking of you, our players, our community, our ambassadors, to everyone who has accompanied us, supported us, and sometimes challenged us. Altered managed to create something rare, a sincere kind of committed community. We say this because we meet you time and again. You often surprise us. We are sad tonight because we realize what this game represented for many of you, and because we also realize all that we have failed to achieve. We are thinking of the game stores, to those who believed in the game before it was a certainty, who championed it to their customers, and who ordered stock on a gamble. Running a game store is in fact a faith itself, because an independent French TCG with an original universe and no established license to lean on, that deserve to be acknowledged. Thank you to them. We're thinking of our artists. Altered is a universe Altered is a universe, a visual identity, something recognizable at a single glance. This world would not exist until they drew it. Thank you to them for giving substance to all of this. We are thinking of our partners, those we called such for lack of better words, because partner describes a contract but not the relationship. For their advice, for what they taught us by their side, for the moments they believed in the project even more than we perhaps deserved. We grew together and cannot be erased. And of course, on a personal level, my thoughts are with the team. The women and the men who continued to believe even when the headwind became exhausting. To their resilience in the face of invincible obstacles, to their total dedication. They have been extraordinary. I know that word can be feeling worn out, but here, it takes on its full meaning. Thank you to them for allowing this universe to exist, if only for a time. As we write these lines, we quickly realize how much we lack the words to evoke all positive emotions tied to these years by your side. There are 1,000 memories to recall, encounters, smiles, events, and passionate discussion. And now, I know that the settling silence brings its share of questions. What will happen to your digital collection, to the future of the on Board Game Arena, to the legacy of the universe? We're not going to leave you in a vacuum. We simply need some time to digest the moment, to properly close this chapter, and to provide you with a clear and respectful answer. Thank you for every card played, for every smile exchange, for everything you put of yourselves into the adventure. It was an honor to imagine with you. That's from Regis.
Yes, very, very well said. I do want to jump in and point out particularly the team and how he talks about how great the team is. And I honestly don't ever expect or know if anyone on the team listens to the podcast, but if they listen to this one, I would absolutely want to echo that. I have never felt as well treated as I did when I was working with Equinox, and I've said it in various different ways, and I am probably too honest and blunt. I should probably hold my tongue a lot, but no other TCG I've worked with treated their staff as well as Equinox did. When it comes down to just like things that they let me keep from doing the road shows, or how they interacted with demo staff and judges. They were very welcoming, and you do not see that in every game company. And so anyone I talked to at Equinox was always super great to talk to. I did have the pleasure of taking an office visit in France when I went out there to cast the Worlds. And every single person was, willing to talk, just chat with me about what they're working on, how much they love the game. And yeah, I appreciate everything that they did for me and the game. So really a lot of great people.
Dexter, what do you got? Welcome to the show.
Hello. Yeah, I would totally agree with everything that Cole just said. Working with them at Gen Con and Dallas was a great experience. Talking with all of the Altered staff was great. Like they treated us well, and much better than many other card games. And it's sad to see the game go.
Yep. One thing of importance from what we just read I wanted to point out was that last bit about the and now. I think a lot of people, as I said, focused on that it also marks the end of the Altered adventure, and then they kind of just left it at that. They are actively working on what they can do, but there's a couple things that I want to drive home to everyone, and I've been trying to do it in the Discord. One, Altered is not owned by only Equinox. If you want to split it up, Regis is his own person. He's a game designer. He technically owns a part of it. Equinox as a company owns a part of it. And even though the distribution changed, Asmodee still owns a part of Altered. So they can't just, up and make decisions themselves and go willy-nilly. That's a super easy way to get sued. Another key important thing to all of that is Asmodee also owns Board Game Arena, BGA. So they're figuring out everything they could do. If it was up to them, they would have already unlocked Roots of Corruption for everyone. At least that's the vibe that I've gotten with conversations I've had with them. And they would keep it on, BGA as long as possible. What I can say as part of the Masubi is we're actively working with Loki to, see everything that we can save, see what we can do for people in the future. And as of now, until someone sends a cease and desist or something, some of those things are looking and sounding promising. And one thing that I thought was really cool is some community members, Magnus in the live audience right now is actually one of them, have started an initiative to maybe make a players council if Altered is allowed to continue in any way, shape, or form, like Netrunner has done. It was really cool to actually see the lead developer of the implementation on BGA join that Discord. His name is Vincent. This is a guy that doesn't even own an Altered deck, but he's worked on the game so much and he believes in it so much that he joined that Discord. So that was super awesome to see. So if there's anything to focus on, I would say focus on that last paragraph and just be patient and see, what we're able to get out of this from here.
Is there a world, and I've said this multiple times before, is there a world where they decide to come back with this as a digital only?
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's been mentioned a lot. I guess to back up a little, and if anyone is listening to this episode and they don't know who I am, and that's not me trying to be like, do you even know who I am?
Motherfucker, I'm Cole Robbie. Sorry.
But just to like give my resume and why I say certain things, it's because it's from experience, not just like pulling it out of my ass. So I've been connected with Altered since before the Kickstarter. Basically the December before the Kickstarter, which launched in February. I don't remember years, what that would have been, 2023, December 2023, something like that. I joined up to do the road shows leading up to the Kickstarter in DFW, Texas area. So I did that. And then I did road shows after the Kickstarter to do like learn to plays and things like that to help set up OP in DFW, Texas. From then I went and I did demos at Gen Con where I worked with most of the team. So, I've talked with the lead art designer, Max, who's no longer there, the old digital guy, Philippe, who left a bit ago as well, and just a lot of the game designers. And then I was invited to Worlds for casting, and as part of our work on AWOL with Simon, we were actually having a conversation to be like one of the premier partners online for Altered with AWOL and, like myself and Blue and Simon. So I've had meetings at the office, and all of that, I've also worked with Asmodee. So I have worked not directly as an employee of Asmodee, but I have worked as a contractor for Asmodee on various different games. And for every single Altered event that happened in the United States, except for DreamHack. I still give Justin shit for not reaching out to me about DreamHack. Because it's in Dallas, but it was kind of last minute. So all of that nonsense is just to say, like, I do feel some of the things I say come from experience and not me just making shit up. So what was I saying?
I have no idea. You totally went off route because I was saying, is there a world where, they decide to bring it in as a digital only? I get a feeling that a lot of that 1.1 million or the 2 million they needed was in sheer cost of shipping, production. Obviously there are some, art, so on and so forth. Those would go in there regardless. But I have a feeling that a good chunk, I would beg to say 50%. I might be completely wrong on that, but I would beg to say about 50% was the physical production of the game and distribution. So if they did crack, they did crack 1.1. I guess my thought on it is obviously there's still, how many, you guys are still pulling 60 plus on BGA. right? I mean,
yeah. There's tournaments that get up to 120 or more pretty regularly.
So like clearly, like, you know, it's not. There's some cost that is just astronomical that they're saying. I don't know what all goes into that $2 million. I thought many moons ago, and we talked about this on Black Monday, as it's now being called, or what it's called,
Bloody Monday.
Bloody Monday. Sorry, whatever.
Yeah.
Like I thought that number just seemed astronomically high to be sustainable for multiple campaigns.
Yeah. So that is a good. I was gonna say let's back up to explain that a little bit. So that question is asked a lot, which I obviously am not inside enough to know the financials, but it's also mentioned like, oh, they made so much money on the Kickstarter and yada yada. So from my understanding, the game was being made like up to 2 years before the Kickstarter. So like Regis, and I don't know how much Asmodee like actually put in, but put in a lot of money into the game to develop it and get it running before the Kickstarter. And a big part of the Kickstarter was kind of paying back, you know, some of those initial investments and then building things going forward. A lot of people don't know that the digital implementation and a lot of what they were trying to do was extremely costly. And you know, maybe they
a lot of people think digital implementation is just free.
Yeah,
they don't realize that anything on the internet costs money. Actually, not it all costs money. And especially with the speed they did it in, Drazkor, who's on Archons Corner with me, he's in the tech world, and he'll tell you anything is available. You can do anything in tech, and any time limit. It's just how much do you want to spend? If you want it done really, really fast, it's going to cost you lots and lots of money. Because it's just more people, it's manpower, coding, doing all that fun stuff. So, so they did it with quite haste on their end. So I can't imagine that was cheap at all.
Yeah, so the digital implementation and making that system, which did not catch on as much as it should have, because I cannot tell you how much better it is to buy cards on the Altered marketplace and print on demand. I know people are going to be like, but print on demand isn't working, yada yada. When they were, you know, doing it consistently and able to, that is so many leagues better than buying singles how people normally do. But people are so bought into, you know, how TCG singles are sold now. Like you go to eBay or you go to TCG Player, or if you're lucky, you can go to an LGS. But they were trying to make something really ambitious. Not to mention they were very generous for a company. All of the errata compensation, things like that. I have never heard of another company that would ever do that, unless they were a company giving you, you know, fake things. Like if a mobile game server goes down, they'll give you some fake currency where you can just buy, you know,
more
digital
of their
items.
Stuff.
Yeah. But the errata compensation is literal money that they were giving you just because they changed a card. So things like that, you know, they were very generous about. But the financials thing, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Trial by Frost actually did not do as well as they would have wanted at all. And it is, of course, the set that gets the most hate. I think undeservedly. I think it's a very awesome thematic set, and I think there's some really good cards in it. But it did not sell very well. So ever since then, they've kind of been playing, catch up. And all of the stuff with Asmodee, I feel like I've talked about it on this podcast so many times.
We have.
But
this is it. So get it out. This is This is the end as we see it at the current time. So get it out. I mean, we got maybe 2 more episodes as information comes out, really. And then, so get it out. Get it out of your systems.
Yeah, I'll just speed run it by saying, like, I thought when they announced, and a lot of us thought it was a very good idea to split away from Asmodee because of what we saw in how it was, being treated as a game through Asmodee. And I think it was a good decision, but it was maybe too much damage had been done, and it was not, able to be fixed after that. Someone asked me today, like, if I thought the game would have been able to survive if it stayed with Asmodee. I think at most, Roots of Corruption maybe could have come out. But you had Asmodee reps that would tell stores, oh, there's no pre-release product. There's no OP product. You had reps that just didn't know about it. There were multiple stores that would get the wrong Tumult items. Like, they would get last season's Tumult mat and other stuff a day before, if not day of, their scheduled Tumult. There were just a lot of issues in the distribution. So Equinox's idea was, if we can bring it in-house and we control everything, even if we have to work extra hard, answering store emails and yada, maybe we can help all of this. One thing that happened that I can personally attest to is conventions were largely because of Asmodee, which was a great thing for the game. But after the game wasn't, some huge success, they stopped wanting to give it floor space. For PAX East, that basically happened because of Justin, and he took all of the work on himself and made it happen. We technically weren't even there with Asmodee. We were there with another company called ESA. And because of that, there was none of the regular, Asmodee things like paid travel or whatever. Pretty sure all of us that flew to judge for that lost money, but we did it anyways. We ended up in the very, very back corner of PAX East, which was hard for people to find. And Star Wars had like this huge, space because that's what Asmodee was pushing.
Yeah.
It was very funny in the Discord because someone made some comment about, Asmodee or whatever. And I just asked, like, what is that based on? And they were like, my brains. I was like, well, let me tell you from experience, like, what I know, because it's not me just pulling it out of my brain randomly.
Right. It's knowledge. So, I mean, cutting away from Asmodee, to be honest with you, I don't know if you would have seen Seeds. If they didn't cut away from Asmodee.
Yeah, I mean, that's also possible because Asmodee could have just said, we're not going to do it anymore. Sorry.
They have a great track record for doing that.
They do have a good track record.
Asmodee has a phenomenal track record of just dumping a game. So, I mean, you can look at games that even were doing well, that they just weren't seeing like a huge, look at Star Wars Destiny. That game, I mean, was white hot, but it just wasn't making the money they thought it should be making. So they got rid of it.
Yeah.
White hot, couldn't find product. Product was even starting to come into like Walmart's. Like, you kind of, as a CCG, know you've made it when SJ Holdings starts to be like, oh, we need to start purchasing some of this. When that's the company that's starting to buy your product, you've made it, right? They buy all the Pokemon and Magic junk you see at like Walmart and Target.
What's really funny about that is I also did road shows for Star Wars Unlimited.
Yeah.
And guess what was mentioned every time I reached out to a store to talk about doing the roadshow?
Altered.
No, Destiny. They were like, I don't know if I want to get in on this because are they just going to pull the same thing they did with Destiny?
Right. I mean, and let's be honest. I mean, this isn't my weekly Keyforge podcast, but they did the same shit with Keyforge. When shit got hard, they're just like, not for us. They're not in the game to drive a community. I mean, they're a business, so they're in the game to make money, but they're not in the game to drive a community and do the things necessary to keep it flowing. They are strictly about money, which again, they are a business and it's their right. But I mean, once the tough gets going and they get a little friction, they normally dump. So,
yeah,
was it good? I mean, we could talk about the things, and this was one of my questions. Like, what are the things that made this come to pass? Like, how did you go from a game that was, I mean, what was this? It made $5 million on Kickstarter.
Yeah, five or six.
It was 5 or 6. Like, you know, it was the highest ever grossing game on Kickstarter. How did we go from there to where, you know, I mean, what, 2 years later, we're now talking about we're not continuing? What? Yeah. I mean, what are the thoughts there?
So, my PC just shut down because I'm thinking too much and not touching it. So
too many different competitors.
Too many different competitors. Part of it. Yeah, that is true. There's a good question though in the live chat from Magnus. Does anyone know why Equinox got Asmodee involved in the first place? I don't know why, but one thing I will give credit to Asmodee for is BGA. I know so many players love to shit on BGA, but I will have this argument 10 times over that the implementation of BGA basically on day one is way better than any other TCG I've seen that is both digital and physical. The only other client that comes close is Magic Arena, which is like their 5th client.
Right. And here's what I'll say about Asmodee. Asmodee Europe is typically seen as pretty good, right? Pretty phenomenal. Now, I don't know how it is now because Asmodee has been sold again for like the 15th time. The company just keeps getting bought out by some, you know, investment banker or holding company. So I don't know how they are now, but, you know, once upon a time, like Asmodee Europe was like the gold standard. And you're talking about a game that's predominantly made in, well, I shouldn't say if it's only made in France. So getting in with Asmodee would be a big deal. Now, that being said, you know that the North American markets are the markets that dominate whether a game makes it or not. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. Asmodee North America, I'm going to put this as bluntly as I can, sucks ass. They are the worst thing to ever happen to anything ever. I mean, this isn't the first time they've fumbled stuff like this before. Like, this is kind of known information at this point in time. You know what I mean? Like, they did this with Keyforge. They did this with Destiny. I mean, I don't know how many games I need to name that they did this exact model with, right? They come in, they get a whole bunch of hype, you know, everybody gets crazy, everybody wants to buy it. The typicality of an Asmodee game is they don't produce enough product, and that usually gets people on the wrong foot. I mean, just look at Unlimited, right? I mean, it's doing well now, I think. I don't really know. But originally, like, a lot of people wanted to get into the game, and they couldn't because there was no product to be bought. Couldn't buy anything anywhere. So when people want to get into a game, but they can't buy anything for the game, you know, they tend to go elsewhere. Us gamers left to our own devices are very, ADD-ish, right? If we can't get it in our hands right now, we'll go do something else. And then by that time, when you come back around to it, you're like, oh yeah, I wanted to try that. How I mean, just in the chat, for you guys in the chat, how many games have been like, oh yeah, I wanted to try that, but like you never did because like either you couldn't get product or nothing was going on with it, and so you kind of just did something else, and then all 6 months later, you're like, oh yeah, I wanted to try that. I mean, I can tell you, I've done that
of random TCG.
so many times, so many times. Star Wars, the Unlimited, one of them. I bought a box. I wanted to buy more, but that's all they had. And, by the time it came back around, I'm like, all right. And then they're like, yeah. I'm like, when's the next release coming out? And they're like, Christmas. It was June. So you're telling me I'm not able to get any more product until Christmas. Boy, howdy, I did not care anymore. So... Yeah, I mean, and Enderveen says it's like 6. Yeah, I mean, and CCGs have this cycle too, right? So it might have just been bad timing for Altered as well. CCGs have this cycle, and it seems like it's like every 10, 15 years or so, where like everything has a CCG, and you're starting to see it again. If any of you remember the golden age of CCGs, kind of back in that 2005 era, everything had a CCG. Call of Cthulhu had a CCG. Battlestar Galactica had a CCG. Wrestling had a CCG. Everything had a CCG, and it just becomes bloat, right? I mean, Yu Yu Hakusho had a CCG. I'm still trying to think of just all the different things that were vying for people's attention. And what it ends up doing is just nobody wins, right? You know who ends up winning? Wizards of the Coast, right? Because then people don't know where to go, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, you heard of Commander?" And that's a thing. And we're seeing it again now. Digimon has a CCG. Dragon Ball Z has a CCG. Another CCG. This is like their third or their fourth. I'm trying to think. What do we got? You got
Lorcana,
Flesh and Blood. You still got Magic and Pokemon. You got Stretchy Pirate.
Stretchy Pirate.
One Piece. Thank you, Gus. Yeah. One Piece. Stretchy Pirate. Riftbound is a CCG. Final Fantasy's got a CCG. I was just on TCG Player the other day going through all the ones that are just like out now. And it's astounding. And so you're fighting for a space, and let's be honest. Like, can we all be honest with each other for a second? Altered was kind of a pinkies up, more sophisticated card game, right? And it's like they said, they had no IP to lean on. It was their own. They were literally reaching into cryptids and people from the past that nobody's ever heard of, right? Because I mean, you and I have heard of, Tesla, but, most kids nowadays would be like, is that a car? I don't know. They don't know. Right. So it is hard to cut your teeth into an industry so saturated unless you have an IP that is extraordinarily recognizable.
Yeah, we have to blame the UK for having the rights to Winnie the Pooh still, or else we could have Winnie the Cook.
I thought Winnie the Pooh was now considered common domain.
Is he?
Except for in the UK. So
except for in the UK?
Yep, there is a card called Winnie the Cook in Altered, but they were never able to release it.
No bother.
There were also some very cool characters coming up in future sets that will probably never see the light of day, and I cannot say the words. So, really, really interesting.
Did you sign an NDA, or are you just deciding not to?
I mean, I've signed like 12.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. Jesus was actually going to become a Lyra character, for all of you who didn't know.
True. The painter. Jesus
was a carpenter, you dumbass.
The interesting part of this conversation in Asmodee is first and foremost like a lifestyle game company, and they are very good at selling those games or producing those games like Quack or whatever was super big a Gen Con ago, or all of the Lord of the Rings games that, Dexter worked on previously. TCGs, I would say they have a very poor history with, and even their LCGs, the community very frequently is not happy with Asmodee. And I don't know how many people know this, but they recently just started cutting a bunch of their other products, like some of their mini games and things like that. Like they've laid off tons of people.
Well, I mean, FFG and Asmodee are known for that. Beginning of the year, they'll do like massive layoffs to a lot of people, and then they'll kind of hire throughout the year. That's a known thing that they do all the time.
Yeah, but they're stopping, I think, very specifically a couple mini games, like the Star Wars one. I think I don't know
which one now.
Let's see.
I mean, the problem is they also like they'll take an IP and they will bleed it dry, right? Like
Shatterpoint.
Oh, Shatterpoint just came out.
Yeah, they are.
But to be fair, Shatterpoint was just another, like, they had, what was it, Imperium? I can't even remember. There was 4 or 5 different minis games that they had going all at the same time, all different rule sets. I think there was Imperial Assault and then Shatterpoint, and then there was this one, that one. I mean, they had X-Wing, which was huge, and then they kind of killed it by doing X-Wing 2.0 because I don't know if their design team was just like, their design team made a huge boo-boo. And instead of just, saying like, we're going to change it so you can't do that, they came out with X-Wing 2.0, and that pissed a whole bunch of people off. A whole bunch of people stayed, but a whole bunch of people were pissed. And then, then you had Armada, which was focused on the bigger ships. And it was just, they will bleed an IP dry, and they are bleeding Star Wars dry right now. So, and that's fine. Star Wars is hot. People still enjoy Star Wars. I mean, I won't be playing any of their games. If I ever were to go back to a Star Wars game, it would be the original Decipher one that I played for years upon years upon years, which actually still has a pretty thriving community. Believe that or not, a game that ended in 2005. Still going. Still going. I mean, it did start in 1995, so it did have, 10 years of cards to pull from. So, I mean, they still make virtual sets. They're still making new cards for the game and just releasing them virtually. And then you're able to put them in front of other cards, kind of like a proxy, and just play with them. It is wild, but I mean, this, who else is doing that same thing as WWE Raw Deal, right? Like they're still doing virtual cards for that. So, I mean, that's maybe an opportunity. I know you guys said something about like a players committee possibly becoming a thing. I hope somebody sticks with it, right? And I mean, you don't have the vast card pool that you did, but I mean, given the ability, you could design stuff and release mini sets and a lot of different things. So there's a lot of opportunity there left with Altered, right? So if I just, who was it, Lord Kratz, I believe, said, yeah, you love the game, sad it's ending. It's not necessarily, right? It's ending production, but I mean, you're still able to play it on BGA for now. I mean, if you have a local, you can still play it. It doesn't change anything. Just there's not going to be any meta shifts for a little bit. So
you can be the meta shift you want to see in the world.
I was going to say, you can make your own rules of cards that you no longer want to see. Cards that you think that are a problem. If you have a community by you are still play this game. I mean, I still played Star Wars 3 or 4 years past the game officially being taken out of Decipher's hands and given to Wizards of the Coast. What about the thought here's just a thought. What about the thought? And I'm kind of jumping around because I know we were talking about like what kind of led to the end. But what about the thought of somebody else taking over the game? Is that something they're looking at? Maybe another external company. Maybe it's not as crazy as what Equinox wanted to do, because I mean they didn't. I'll tell you the nice thing that was about Equinox is they didn't half-ass anything typically. But like maybe they should have skimped in some areas to save some cash. You know what I mean? Like maybe we don't need 7 different types of art. You know, maybe we only need 1, and it just transfers to all cards because that's just where the money is. You know, I'm not sure. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so there is just the one hurdle that I mentioned at the start, the fact that Equinox does not own the IP alone. Asmodee technically still does own the IP as well. So it'll depend on whatever conversation happens with Asmodee. I don't know specifically what the deal was that Ghost Galaxy struck to like get Keyforge. I don't know how much it cost.
Nobody knows. I'm guessing a sandwich and a bag of Lay's potato chips. I mean, basically, I guess Ghost Galaxy, because the big thing about that is, the owner of Ghost Galaxy is the old owner of FFG. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, there's probably still some relationships there. Ghost Galaxy is like, shit, we lost the algorithm. We don't really want to bother doing anything with it. And they're like, I know a guy, you know, and there was probably some reaching out like, hey, you got any interest in this? And I'm sure there was some haggling back and forth of what everything's worth, right? And then eventually they struck some kind of deal with FFG and Asmodee for them to take it over, because mainly FF, for lack of better terms, even though their last article when they lost the algorithm said otherwise, they were clearly done with the game and weren't going to continue doing anything with it. So, yeah,
reaching back a little bit, because I have something interesting up on my screen where we're kind of, you know, debating why Asmodee got involved, what could have happened if they weren't, you know.
I can tell you, like, it was probably a big deal for a tiny card game like Equinox and Altered to be able to be picked up and distributed by Asmodee. That's huge. That was huge for the Altered team, right? No doubt about it. Like, they are the primo exporter in Europe and that hemisphere of the world. So why did they get involved? They probably were some point along the way where like, hey, you need distribution, we can help you out with that, and it just kind of happened. You know, when you do make that kind of money on a Kickstarter, like there's no doubt in my mind, like people start looking, and they're like, how do I get a slice of that pie? So
so. You said something really interesting about, you know, Asmodee North America versus EU, and then where Gus in chat said something about an indie TCG and avoiding Asmodee. I pulled up Flesh and Blood, and they actually have like distributor information and things like that. From my understanding, the really, really quick story of Flesh and Blood is it was basically like one dude and maybe an artist or two, and just very slowly and for a long time built it up.
Yep.
And now it's huge. If you go to their list of distributors, in the United States, it is PhD Games and Southern Hobby.
Makes sense.
In Canada, it's Prince and Universal. Central America, someone else. In the UK and Europe, Asmodee.
Yeah, they're primo, right? They are the top of the top, right? You can't get better than them in Europe.
Yep, but not anywhere else. All of their other distributors are not Asmodee except for in Europe.
Yeah,
UK, Spain, Italy, and France.
Totally makes sense if I'm being like 1,000% honest with you.
Yeah, and I made a bulleted comment on Reddit from like what we saw, because someone asked what caused the shutdown. And one of my first points was that Asmodee did not care enough about the game or did a poor job of promoting it and supporting the stores. And so now, of course, I have like 4 store owners that were like, Asmodee was amazing. My rep was amazing, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, cool. You are definitely one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's definitely, like, there are good Asmodee reps who take care of their people, right? And do the right thing. I shouldn't say the right thing, but do their job appropriately. And for every one of them, there's 17 garbage ass ones, right? So I mean, there's I can't even explain it. Just even coming from Keyforge and Asmodee and that, and it's just like, oh, I want this. I would like to buy this because I want to give you money. And then the store owner just has no fucking idea. Like, they're like, what? And you're like, yeah, can you get that? And they're like, I don't know. I'll check. And then before you know it, I talked to my Asmodee rep. They say it doesn't exist. And you're like, it definitely exists. Here's the article that says it does.
Yep.
Like, again, for every one of those great Asmodee reps, there are just 100 bad ones. That, again, these are people paid on commission. They're going to promote shit that sells, right? I've been a commissioned worker before. You're not gonna promote your, hey, I got this new game for you, Hoss. You want to check it out? No, I'm gonna promote my fucking game that I know is like a slam dunk and I can make a bucket of money on. Like, that's how it works. That's how it is. The shitty side of commissioned sales.
Yeah. The one thing I will say, if I were to expand on this Reddit comment, is I think, as you kind of mentioned, Asmodee did a really good job of getting Altered out there for the first set. And then, in my eyes, once Trial by Frost did not do absolutely amazing, that's when they were like, okay, we're done. Like, you're on your own. Goodbye.
My biggest question is, what were the struggles, right? I mean, obviously, I know getting any of my stores to even do anything with Altered was a struggle. And I kind of wonder why. And it was like, is it just too much? Is it like, it's another fly-by-night game, they're not interested? What were the struggles? And I don't really know, because you do have games like Flesh and Blood, where, like, I'm sure they had the same struggles, right? Like, I remember one time watching a YouTube video or something on, like, the Flesh and Blood guy, and he's like, like, as good as Flesh and Blood's doing, we're only in 33% of the North American market, right? Like, only 33% of North America. There's still lots of
stores that don't have Flesh and Blood stuff at all.
So it's like only 33% of North America carries our product. And how do we get into more? And I wish someone would do like a kind of a case study, I guess, on that, to be like, how does this, like, where did they succeed where so many others fail? Because, again, Flesh and Blood, unique IP, right? Unique card game. It's not crazy unique. It's not the first time that card game has been tried. Believe it or not, the History Channel tried a very similar card game type deal. It failed. Maybe it's because there weren't as cool of characters. I don't know. When there were characters based on realistic warriors. No idea. But regardless of all of that, right? Like, there have been other card games that have a similar premise that have failed. Where did they succeed where so many others have failed? Or was it just, I mean, you got to remember, there's a little bit of luck involved in a lot of these too. Right? It might have been, they came out kind of, and what's crazy is they came out during the pandemic. A game that had no interest in doing anything online, doing anything really with the internet, somehow succeeded in a time where we were all locked in our houses. I don't know about you guys. I'm fascinated. Right? Like, how do you achieve that?
So this is a really interesting conversation, and I think the reality that a lot of people won't want to hear, because they want to blame, like, Equinox upper management ruined this, or they ruined that, or they should have marketed more. I think the reality is, I mean, there were obviously missteps and things like that, but the reality is It's just too much competition, and a game like this is too much of a risk. Because as I mentioned, I did road shows for Star Wars and Altered, and if it wasn't a store that had like a very vibrant TCG community that was showing up often for other games, they did not want to touch it. I have a store that's really close to me that didn't even buy Star Wars Unlimited. They're like, no, we're not going to touch that. They only do Magic. There's stores that don't even sell Riftbound right now. And I was talking to a store owner today about Bandai games, because I'm doing like a little Bandai job right now. And he was saying how the thing that they need more is they need more stock. But the problem is, if they had a lot more stock, then it wouldn't be popular. Because when the thing, sells out quickly and it's hard to get a hold of, it actually makes the game
more desirable,
more popular.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond the Gates was notoriously overprinted. I mean, it sold out basically in Europe, but in North America, we had too much. Probably the same for Trial by Frost. And it was another game that a store had to consider when they can just do Pokemon and Magic and be fine doing that. So, although there were mistakes made and balls dropped, I think in the end it's just like it was an uphill battle to begin with, and Flesh and Blood, I think, just took it really, really slow and meticulous. But like Dexter said, the store that I go to that's very popular in a very big city does not have Flesh and Blood organized play weekly.
Yeah, I don't know of any stores in Houston that even have Flesh and Blood. Or at least none of the big ones.
I'm going to be honest with you. A majority of the stores I go to, they also do not have Flesh and Blood, which is crazy. I mean, think about like some of these Flesh and Blood cards are crazy expensive. You know?
And I think that is another thing.
Just if it's not the big three, then stores don't really want to touch it because there's so many different TCGs out there that come and go. And
anything for a store owner, you got to imagine anything for a store owner is a gamble. And when it's your livelihood on the line, whether you're going to be able to feed your family or not, I think your decisions would change. It's easy for a card gamer to be like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you, well, you're not the one who has to make the decision of like, oh, do I buy that case of Altered and hope something happens with it? Or do I like feed my wife and family tonight? And I'm not saying most stores are in that dire of a situation, but like that's how you got to think about it, right? Do I want to take money and possibly just set it on fire? Or I mean, it's a possibility. You know what I mean? Like it is possible that like you buy into a game that you're like, I really like the idea of this game, and you're literally just lighting your money on fire because you might not sell any of it, no matter how good it is, no matter how innovative and cool the thing may be. You might sell zero.
Yeah. I would think, I don't know this for certain, I'll admit that up front, but from the outside, it seems like Flesh and Blood doesn't really have a weekly organized play focus. I think they're starting that this year.
They do. They've had weekly organized play focuses. They have since the beginning.
Okay.
They do a weekly thing where you can get like promo and alt art cards. Yep.
Okay.
Kind of very similar to what Alter did with like, the 3-card packs.
Yeah. It is another, what my point was, is it's another hurdle for a store. Because like I said, I go to a store that's a very popular store, which means they run out of table space. So how they do it is they take all of their games and evaluate them every quarter. And if the weekly numbers have been consistently below a certain amount, they have to take that game off the schedule and open up the space for, another game.
Magic and Commander Night.
Yeah, Magic and Pokemon always have the space.
Yep, because they're a thing, and it's the struggle that a lot of small games are going to face, and because again, whether these games have the IPs are driving things right now. To get into the spaces, you got to have the IP. That's what's driving. How long is Riftbound going to be around? I don't know. Right, it's the new hotness right now. But how long before they're like, you know what, I'm just going to go play League of Legends on my computer instead? I don't know. Yeah. Not every computer gamer is a card gamer, right? I mean, I'm sure it was enough of a percentage for them to be like, this would be a good idea. But how long? I don't know. Then that's the question, right? I mean, there's a day where you have to realize that almost every game that isn't the big three is probably going to die.
Yeah, it's crazy how strong of a hold Magic has, because if you know anything about like Magic,
the actual company,
play, and well, I mean, sure, yeah, but the last couple of years of Magic have not been good. Like their judge program exploded and doesn't exist right now. They had the team behind Commander blew up and was getting death threats, and now they have whole community made board.
No, that's Commander used to be completely not done at all by Wizards had no control over Commander.
Yeah, and they had to take control of it recently.
And they did. Well, I don't know if they took control of it or if it was I really don't know the story. I know a little bit of the story behind it. Yeah. But the short and skinny of the matter is they made a decision to ban a couple cards. And that started the death threats, that started the people getting angry because, some of those cards are pricey. Yeah. Even just one of them's $100+, so when you piss off a lot of people, all of a sudden they start, I guess the cool thing to do is start threatening people's lives. Yeah. And that's what happened. So then it dissolved and Magic took it over. Which if all of you would like to follow me down the Magic conspiracy rabbit hole, I think it was kind of done on purpose, but that's a story for another day, because I'm almost convinced that they released cards that were going to be too powerful to make an event such as what happened. I don't know if they designed it to be that crazy, but something where they just the people who were on the committee didn't want to deal with it anymore, and then they would come back to good old WotC and have to, because they would gladly take it over. Because that was probably one of their biggest things, is they had no control over the bans, no control over restrictions. They had no control over anything. They were printing cards for a format they had no control over because it was that popular.
Yep. Kind of wild when you think about it. But I don't know. We can talk about what went wrong, what could have been done different, all of that for ages.
I don't know what really honestly could have been done different. I think honestly, I think the 2.5, when they decided that they were going to have to go the game found route, I think they needed to do a little bit of soul searching and realizing that 2.5 was probably not a realistic number. Even 2.0 is not a realistic number for, what were they going to do? They were going to do 4 a year, weren't they?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking they needed basically $6 million a year to function. At that point, we got to talk about cost-cutting measures, right? I mean, maybe that's just me, but at that point, I'm like, how do I make this game cheaper to produce? How do I make it cheaper to get into the hands of the players? I got to kind of, unfortunately, go as cheap as physically possible. Because I need to basically run on, I would have taken that first number that hit and been like, okay, this is kind of our baseline. We need to be under that number at all times. How do we do that?
Yeah. Unfortunately, they did a lot of cuts all the way back since Trial by Frost. Once again, I don't know their budget. I don't know the numbers. I think it's very easy to see, with all of the digital aspects, all the
I don't think the
aspirations.
game, Magnus, I don't think the game died because of the SDU delay. I don't think that was it at all.
It didn't help, but
Yeah,
I'm sure it
nail
didn't
in the
help,
coffin
but
type of thing there.
well, I think the
Yeah,
nail
There's a
was
lot of
already
other
there.
factors in it.
I don't think that was the core thing that did it. I mean, somehow, some way, they needed to find a way into the North American market, and they didn't. That's a bummer, but that's the king. That's the nut that's got to be cracked, and they couldn't figure it out.
The other thing is, I think they, like I've said, were really generous. I would assume that they paid their employees well, especially because it was a French company. They paid like real artists to make art and not use AI or any shortcuts.
Maybe you needed to use AI and some shortcuts.
I mean, for every card, there were like three different arts for common, rare, and unique. So that adds up in cost to do lots of different arts, and they did alt arts.
So let's talk about the Seeds delay. I don't think at all it was a big issue. Number one, how do you explain the dip? The 2.4. How do you explain the dip? You're always going to have a dip. It is inevitable. Every card game is going to have people that are going to leave it, whether you like it or not. There's always going to be a dip. Period. End of story. Nothing you can do is going to stop it. The only thing that you can do is to get new players into it, right? And the problem is unless you're getting the North American market, you're not getting new players into the game, right? Europe isn't that big of a place. Like, Europe is the size of Texas, right? So, there's not that many people over there. So now you got to figure out how to get Texas into the game. I mean, did it hurt it? Maybe. I don't think I don't think the people that were ordering from the original SDU game found were not going to not order from the Roots of Corruption game found because of that. I think you'd already lost players somewhere in between there.
I think so obviously Bloody Monday was a hit, which is one, and the delay was another hit. And to me, I think it's the most recent hit. I think there were still things like Bloody Monday was probably a huge thing. A lot of people, I think, after that, when they're like, well, we actually need 2.5, and we actually need this much. I think that whole idea of when you put up a number and you say $50,000, right? I talked about this a long time ago. When you say, I understand GameFound sets it or whatever, they want you to set it low. But that is going to shake consumer confidence a ton. Yeah. I mean, the question is if they would have, not what you're saying in the audience, but the actual question is, would they have even hit 2 million without these? And who knows? What Wookie is saying is it was probably a long shot for the second GameFound campaign that they did to. I mean, we can even just let's go look at the Keyforge GameFound campaign.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. If you look at the first one, the Winds of Exchange, it is twice as much as the next one.
Yeah. That is there is,
which is the same drop we saw here with Altered.
And we didn't have a delay. We didn't have a lot of the things. So I mean, it is an expected drop. I'm just gonna go look. I don't know if I have all the numbers.
Winds of Exchange
did 1.1 million. And then we go into Grim Reminders, right? Yeah, GR which you saw
which is considered one of the best sets.
Yeah, which is considered one of the top tier sets at 600,000. So they saw 400. They saw basically a 40, almost 500 or 50% drop.
Yep.
In sales from one set to the next. My biggest thing is I don't know if the game found campaign itself in releasing sets is sustainable, because by doing that, I talked about it many, many times before, by doing that, you cut out the store, and the store is a vital point to get reaching players. Because, we can talk about marketing. Like, does marketing work? I don't fucking know. Right? Like, I mean, when's the last time you saw marketing for any game, right? Like, beside that isn't Magic or Pokemon. You know, like, you don't see marketing for Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's got a huge IP behind it. Then we can go into Ember Skies. That's $450,000. I mean, Prophetic Visions only did $252,000. And now the newest set did 300, so it's a $50,000 increase. I don't know if the game found strategy as a long-term strategy is a viable strategy, right? We're 5 sets into Keyforge on this strategy, and it seems to be working for them. But this is also a company that all their everything's done in-house.
Yeah.
Right, all the speculators are gone, no scalpers. That's a huge piece too, but you need your whales. They are a vital part of the thing. We had earlier talked about Cyberpunk. How many of those are people just sitting there speculating? How many of those guys bought the $8,000 big kit that are just speculating?
If you look at their tiers...
Shit, the guy who started this cast was one of the speculators on this card game. Yeah. I mean, Z speculated, and he probably got burned, and he left. Right? So, I mean, you know, it's one of those things. It's how do you continue to raise your player base, not lose players? Especially when you've gone to a format that is cutting out the game store. And essentially, I'm sorry, the game found format does cut out the game store. There's no need for pre-releases anymore because, you know, people are getting cards before the pre-release is even happening. So that's not really a pre-release because everybody's got shit. So it's rocking hard spot right now in the TCG community.
Yeah, I think like I said earlier, the hard thing to like swallow is there isn't like one thing that we can really point to and say this is what did it. I think overall it's just an extremely hard market to make it in. I think Equinox was a little too generous, which is why I fucking loved the game, because I hate capitalism. So it was very nice to see a company actually caring about their players and their employees. Unfortunately, maybe that added to it. When I personally did start to feel like it was unrecoverable, though, was all of this we've talked about before, and then Bloody Monday, because that, you know, ousted some players and some stores, my store specifically as well. The delay, honestly, the delay of Seeds was whatever. Like, I was like, we can get over this. This will be fine. Like, it's unfortunate. Delays happen. It's whatever. But once I started seeing the quality issues with Seeds, I was just like, man.
I really think that the big portion of it, because
this is unfortunate.
When Bloody Monday hit, I think that turned a lot of people off. Again, that's that huge consumer confidence thing, right? Of being like, well, we're nowhere near it. We thought we'd be closer, but we're not. And this is what we need. And I think a lot of people, you know, again, that money is already out of your account, so how many people went and canceled their seeds. Their game found order over it. Probably not a lot, but like, do you really want to then go do another one?
Yeah.
I guess you kind of always had in the back of your mind, we're like, oh, I'm going to get my money back if it doesn't make it. So, I don't know. It's one of those weird things where I was like, I don't know if I do another one. I mean, I backed this one because I liked what they were doing, but I mean, I'm not backing it enough to keep the game going. That's for sure. I don't got that kind of money.
Yep. Well, like I said, we can sit and speculate for hours on end. Also, it's what the Discord is continuing to do.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, you're never. I guess they could come out and say it. I doubt they ever will. But you'll never know. I guess right now, my biggest hope. I guess we're getting a little long in the tooth here, huh? My biggest hope for Altered is that I really do feel like this game could become something of an online game. Yeah. Like what's the WoW one called?
Which one?
There's only no one.
Idea. WoW has one.
TCG or something different. They have a. You talking about the newest one or an old one?
No, what do they got? WoW still has the I don't
Rumble
know.
Or whatever.
No, not Rumble. What is their TCG online right now?
I tried that. I hated it.
Well, they still got that. They were a card game that was originally a card game, and then they brought everything to digital. I guess it's the old one. I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah. Because there's WoW TCG, and then it's WoW TCG Reborn. But they made a mobile, like...
Oh, I didn't even know they made a mobile game.
That's entirely different, though. Warcraft Rumble. It's kind of similar.
And it's not called WoW. I can't even remember what it's called. Let's just... I get...
What I wanted to end with here, which if you made it to the very end of this, congrats, is a couple things to note. Mentioned a little of them at the start, but from all angles that we've been able to see and confirm, the next print on demand slot will be printed, and they hope more than that will be printed. They don't want to just shut down print on demand immediately. I know that. And then there is potential that they will release Roots of Corruption to everybody, at least digitally, and those things go hand in hand. So really the brightest star we can look forward to is that happening. And if you really wanted to print all of Roots of Corruption, you can, which looks amazing. If I were to guess, the most likely way that Altered could stay on BGA is if it goes to a premium title, which would maybe honestly kill it online, but I don't know. Premium titles mean you have to have BGA Premium to play them, but it would also mean that, the game is paying for itself to stay on BGA. Unless Asmodee decides to be like super generous and it's just like, yeah, you can keep it on there. Which that's what I think they should do. And if they want to look at it selfishly, it brings in a ton of people to the platform. It is always in the top 100 games on BGA. So we'll see on that. But what I wanted to make sure we do here at the very, very end for anyone who listens is, if you like anything we've said or done during this entire podcast journey, Wookie, where would you like people to find you, or what else do you do that people can look into?
Obviously, you can find me over on Altered. Now I'm going to say Altered all the time instead of Archon. You can find me at Archon's Corner. We talk Keyforge over there. If you're interested in playing another dead card game that still prints cards, you can come over. And Keyforge will always take new people. I call it the Play With Me Please game. You can follow me Over on Blue Sky, Altered Corner, X, Altered Corner, Archons Corner, pretty much for everything. Archons Corner for everything. You follow us going to the Vault Tours, going to our World Championship. This is really bothering me that I can't figure out what this game is called.
The World of Warcraft game?
It's the online one. It's the one that everybody played for like so long, and I can't figure out what it's called.
Oh, are you talking about Hearthstone?
Hearthstone. Thank you. Yes.
Oh God.
Yeah, that's still going. People still dump buckets of money into that thing.
Yeah. I played some Hearthstone.
You know, and again, I hope they realize the ability for that, and then I hope if that doesn't come to fruition, I hope they're. It sounds like there's already a pretty dedicated players committee starting to form.
Yep.
And so then they can do their thing. You guys got 7 sets, which isn't a ton to work with and change, but obviously you can change a lot of different things, right? And you can make multiple versions of multiple things. So.
Yep. What about you, Dexter?
I'm really only active on social media for Discord, and I'm on all the Keyforge servers. That's pretty much it.
Awesome. And I'll try to keep mine as short as possible. I'll first talk about Altered Corner as, this podcaster. It's really a lot more than just the podcast. It started as the Texas server, then grew into a tournament hub, and we've even adopted St. Louis and other areas. So I can, guarantee that as long as people want it, the Altered Corner Discord will remain. I'll probably revamp it a little. I'm still playing on BGA, doing turn-based games, tournaments, everything. The website will be shutting down because what paid for the Altered Corner website was the Patreon. And once the podcast ends, there's not too much to put on the Patreon. It wasn't really making us any extra money. It literally just paid for the website, which had the event calendar on it. It had the convoy mode that I made, and then like some other things like links and everything. So that website, I think, ends next month, or like the domain ends next month or something. And then I might just start only streaming on my personal channel because I don't want to, like, people, sub on Twitch to Altered Corner and things like that. I don't want to split people and, have people feel like they need to sub to 2 different channels. And the YouTube has always been for tournaments and things like that on my personal YouTube. And Archons Corner will continue. It was kind of a super smart setup to just have the same feed and be sisterly, brotherly podcasts or whatever. But I'm not going anywhere. I'll be around. I'm at Kohlrabi literally everywhere, and I'll be streaming every Tuesday basically. So
maybe he'll play some Keyforge.
I actually do like Keyforge. I just hate the client.
Yep.
I can't do anything there. I know they're working on building it a little bit better, but we don't get the.
Yep.
There's been talks about Keyforge coming to BGA. I don't know when that will be, but there's been a few talks about it. Word on the street is I've heard.
Yep. But I like all sorts of TCGs. I'll talk about basically any of them. You may see me at events. I think I forgot to mention, but Asmodee is such a mess that they won't even be at PAX East this year. So hopefully I'll see you guys at Gen Con. Or if you go to Riftbound Atlanta, I'm hoping to be there. We'll see.
Nice. Well, with that being said, for the final time for Altered Corner, we'll see you around.
Later.
Adios.